Hello students, welcome to lesson number 10, the Sermon at Benares. The Sermon at Benares throws light upon the early life of Lord Buddha, and this lesson was written by Betty Renshaw. Now, Gautam Buddha was originally born as a prince in the royal family. On being exposed to the sufferings of the world, which was earlier shielded from, he left his princehood and went in search of salvation, thus leaving all worldly pleasures behind. Upon gaining spiritual awakening, he gave his first sermon in the city of Benares, hereby making a lady named Kissa Gautami realize that men are mortal and a wise person should not grieve at what is bound to happen, for it only enhances pain and suffering. So now let us begin reading the lesson. Gautam Buddha, 563 BC to 483 BC, began life as a prince named Siddhartha Gautama in northern India. At 12, he was sent away for schooling in the Hindu sacred scriptures, and 4 years later, he returned home to marry a princess. They had a son and lived for 10 years as befitted royalty. At about the age of 25, the prince, heretofore shielded from the sufferings of the world, while out hunting, chanced upon a sick man, then an aged man, then a funeral procession, and finally a monk begging for alms. These sights so moved him that he at once went out into the world to seek enlightenment concerning the sorrows he had witnessed. He wandered for 7 years and finally sat down under a peepal tree where he vowed to stay until enlightenment came. After 7 days, he renamed the tree the Bodhi tree, tree of wisdom, and began to teach and to share his new understanding. At that point, he became known as the Buddha, or the awakened or the enlightened. The Buddha preached his first sermon at the city of Benares, most holy of the dipping places on the river Ganges. That sermon has been preserved and is given here. It reflects the Buddha's wisdom about one inscrutable kind of suffering. Now let's continue with the explanation. Sacred means embodying the laws and doctrines of a religion. Scriptures is the sacred writing of a religion. Befitted is to be appropriate for or to suit something. Chanced upon is came across by chance. Alms is money given or food given to poor people in charity. Enlightenment is a state of high spiritual knowledge. Now, Gautam Buddha was born to a North Indian royal family as a prince and was named Siddhartha Gautama. He was sent to a faraway place when he was 12 years old in order to study Hindu sacred scriptures, and upon returning 4 years later, he got married to a princess. Soon they both had a son and they continued to live royal life for about 10 years. The royal couple was shielded from all unpleasant experiences of the world. They had no experience of suffering or sorrow. But one day, the prince met a sick man, and then he saw an old man. Then he saw a funeral procession, and last of all he saw a monk, a sadhu, looking for some alms. And these experiences acted as eye-openers for him, and so he left royalty in order to seek a higher sense of spiritual knowledge. Then, the meaning of the word wandered is to move without a fixed course, and vowed is to take a solemn promise about a specified thing. Preached is to deliver a religious address to an assembled group of people. Sermon, a talk on religious or moral subject. Holy is sacred. Dipping places, that is a bathing place where people go to the river Ganga for a dip in it. Inscrutable is something which cannot be understood. Gautam Buddha went in search of enlightenment for about 7 years before he finally came across a peepal tree and chose to sit under it until he became awakened. When he finally attained salvation after 7 days, he decided to rename the tree as the Bodhi tree, which means the tree of wisdom, and he himself came to be known as Buddha, which means the awakened. He even began preaching his new realization, and his first sermon was given in the city of Benares. Now, the city of Benares is known to be very sacred as it resides on the banks of the river Ganges, that is the river Ganga. The first sermon he gave was preserved, that means was kept very safe, and is very famous till today. And here we can see what that sermon is. It gives a very new perspective to man's unending suffering. Now let's continue reading further. Then Kisa Gautami had an only son. Kisa Gautami had an only son and he died. In her grief, she carried the dead child to all her neighbors, asking them for medicine. And the people said, "She has lost her senses. The boy is dead." At length, Kisa Gautami met a man who replied to her request. "I cannot give thee medicine for thy child, but I know a physician who can." And the girl said, "Pray tell me, sir, who is it?" And the man replied, "Go to Shakya Muni, the Buddha." Kisa Gautami repaired to the Buddha and cried, "Lord and Master, give me the medicine that will cure my boy." The Buddha answered, "I want a handful of mustard seed." And when the girl in her joy promised to procure it, the Buddha added, "The mustard seed must be taken from a house where no one has lost a child, husband, parent, or friend." Poor Kisa Gautami now went from house to house, and the people pitied her and said, "Here is a mustard seed, take it." But when she asked, "Did a son or a daughter or a father or mother die in your family?" they answered her, "Alas, the living are few, but the dead are many. Do not remind us of our deepest grief." And there was no house, but some beloved one had died in it. Kisa Gautami became weary and hopeless, and sat down at the wayside, watching the lights of the city as they flickered up and were extinguished again. At last, the darkness of the night reigned everywhere, and she considered the fate of man, that their lives flicker up and are extinguished again. And she thought to herself, "How selfish am I! In my grief, death is so common to all. Yet in this valley of desolation, there is a path that leads him to immortality who has surrendered all selfishness." We will stop here and we will continue with the explanation. So over here we can see that there is a lady by the name of Kisa Gautami, and her only son had died. So since she was struck with great unending pain, she took her son from door to door, requesting for a medicine that could bring her son back to life. And quite obviously, everyone thought that the lady had lost her ability to think, that she was in a real shocked condition. Going from door to door, she finally came across a man who couldn't give her medicine, but he told her to go to the Sakya Muni, the Buddha. And filled with hope, the lady visited Gautam Buddha and begged him for a cure for her child. Then the Buddha agreed, and he said that, "I will do what you want me to, but you must get me a handful of mustard seed." And she really was hearing this, she became very happy, because she knew she could get mustard seeds from anyone's house. But the Buddha added to that, he said, "But you must get the mustard seeds from that person's house who has not lost a father, a mother, a son, a daughter, a husband, or a wife." And then she knew she was very sad. So she went from door to door and she asked people for mustard seeds, and they were very willing to give it to her. But when she asked, "Is there anyone who has died?" they all said, "Please do not remind us. All of us have lost somebody or the other, and we are all very sad." So then Kisa Gautami realized, she went from door to door, and she came to the conclusion that there isn't a single person on this earth who hasn't lost some beloved family member. And then she came to the realization that she was very selfish. So all hope was lost. She found herself at the edge of a road, and she sat down there in grief and despair, in great sorrow. She watched the city lights blinking and observed them till there was just darkness all around. And after thinking for a long time on reflecting, she realized that man's fate is just like that. He is like those city lights that flicker and then they get extinguished repeatedly. This cycle of birth and death is nature's way of working. And then she became conscious as to how selfish she had been in her sorrow, and that one who is born must rest eternally. Men are only mortal. So let us continue reading. The Buddha said, "The life of mortals in this world is troubled and brief and combined with pain. And for there is not any means by which those who have been born can avoid dying. After reaching an old age, there is death. That means it is inevitable. Of such a nature are living beings. As ripe fruits are early in danger of falling, so mortals, when born, are always in danger of death. As all earthen vessels made by the potter end in being broken, so is the life of mortals. Both young and adult, both those who are fools and those who are wise, all fall into the power of death. All are subject to death. Of those who overcome by death depart from life. A father cannot save his son, nor kinsmen their relations. Mark, while relatives are looking on and lamenting deeply, one by one mortals are carried off like an ox that is led to the slaughter. So the world is afflicted with death and decay. Therefore, the wise do not grieve, knowing the terms of the world." So over here we can see, children, that she became conscious that she had become very selfish in her sorrow, and that one who is born has to die one day. Then the Buddha said that the life of mortals is troubled because they have not come to terms, they have not made peace with the fact that the one who is born must rest eternally one day. There is no way a living being can avoid facing death. Just like a ripe fruit is more prone to falling, an aged human being, an aged mortal, is bound to die. Just like all earthen vessels break at some point of time, so do men. Whether old or young, foolish or wise, death leaves no one. Kinsman is man who is of a person's own blood relations, that means relatives or family members. Lamenting is expressing disappointment or regret about something. Slaughter is the killing of animals for food, and afflicted means affect adversely. So, the only way death works is by withdrawing the person. So, let's continue reading further. Not from weeping nor from grieving will anyone obtain peace of mind. On the contrary, his pain will be the greater and his body will suffer. He will make himself sick and pale, yet the dead are not saved by his lamentation. He who seeks peace should draw out the arrow of lamentation. And complaint and grief. He who has drawn out the arrow and has become composed will obtain peace of mind. He who has overcome all sorrow will become free from sorrow and be blessed. So, lamenting. So, here what does Lord Buddha say? That one should not grieve, one should not be sad, one should not cry or be miserable at something which is bound to happen, for it will keep man away from obtaining peace. It will only multiply the pain and suffering, thus leading to physical weakness, and moreover, no amount of grief will bring back the person who is dead. So it's very important for us to understand that one must move past feelings like sorrow and grief, as it is the only way that leads to the path of salvation. Now thinking about the text. So children, I hope you have understood this lesson well, that in her search for a solution to her child's death, Kissa Gautami realizes that this thing has not only happened to her, but each and every human being. One thing is very final, that everyone who is born one day has to die. Life is uncertain. How long we live is uncertain. But what is final and what is sure and the only thing is death. Death is the final chapter of everyone's life. There is no one who is born who has not died. So, the faster and sooner we come to this realization that all who are born, man is mortal and one day he has to die. So, the faster we accept this true fact, the faster we will gain peace in this world. So, then, question and answers. When her son dies, Kissa Gautami goes from house to house. What does she ask for? Does she get it? Why not? When her son dies, Kissa Gautami goes from house to house, requested for a wonder medicine, a drug that could bring her son back to life. No, she could not get it because there is no medicine that can bring a dead man back to life. Kissa Gautami again goes from house to house after she speaks with the Buddha. What does she ask for the second time around? Does she get it? Why not? Upon seeing the Buddha, Kissa Gautami is refilled with hope and thus goes from house to house looking for mustard seeds, just as Lord Buddha had asked her to get. Many had mustard seeds to offer, but none of them could fulfill Lord Buddha's condition of having seen no deaths in the family. Therefore, she couldn't get any mustard seeds for her son. What does Kissa Gautami understand the second time that she failed to understand the first time? Was this what the Buddha wanted her to understand? When Kissa Gautami failed to find the mustard seeds that could fulfill Lord Buddha's condition of having seen no deaths in the family, she became disheartened. After deep reflection, she realized that man's fate is just like the city lights that flicker for a while and then get extinguished repeatedly. So, the cycle of birth and death was nature's way of working. Suddenly, she became conscious as to how selfish she had been in her sorrow and that one who was born must rest eternally. Men are mortal. Yes, this is exactly what Lord Buddha wanted her to understand. Why do you think Kissa Gautami understood this only the second time? In what way did the Buddha change her understanding? Well, Kissa Gautami was overwhelmed with sorrow and pain, that her ability to think clearly got clouded. She couldn't realize that no one can escape the cycle of death. When Kissa Gautami failed to find the mustard seeds that could fulfill the Lord Buddha's condition of having seen no deaths, then she became disheartened, and after deep reflection for a while, she made peace with the terms of the world. Lord Buddha played a major role in facilitating her shift in her understanding by teaching her the lesson that one must not grieve for what is bound to happen, for that is sure to happen, for it will only deepen the pain and the suffering. So now, how do you usually understand the idea of selfishness? Do you agree with Kissa Gautami that she was being selfish in her grief? Now, here, selfishness normally, when we talk of selfishness, we think of something somebody is not willing to share. Somebody wants, suppose you have a cake and you don't want to share that, or you have a nice new gift or a toy and you don't want to share that. You're being selfish. You don't want to share. But here, Kissa Gautami was being selfish in the fact that she was she was so bound by her own sorrow that she was not opening herself up to understand that she was not the only one who had faced a loss. There were other people in this world who had faced similar losses. In fact, each and every person, all her neighbors, each and every one of her neighbor had also had a similar loss just as she had. So all of them could understand the pain, but because she was selfish, she wasn't able to understand that all the other people in the world had experienced the sorrow that she was going through at that present moment. Now let us go through thinking about the language. The exercise is, this text is written in an old-fashioned style, for it reports an incident more than 2 millennia old. Look for the following words and phrases in the text and try to rephrase them in a more current language. Give thee medicine. That is, give you medicine for your child. Pray tell me, please tell me. Kissa repaired to the Buddha, went to the Buddha. There was no house, but someone had died. That means There was not a single house where no one had died. Kinsmen is relatives or family members. Mark is to understand. Then you know that we can combine sentences using words like and, or, but, yet, and then. But sometimes no such word seems appropriate. In such a case, we can use a semicolon or a dash to combine two clauses. She has no interest in music. I doubt she will become a singer. The second clause here gives the speaker's opinion. So, here's a sentence that uses semicolons to combine clauses. Break up the sentence into 3 simple sentences. Can you then say which has a better rhythm when you read it? The single sentence using semicolons or the 3 simple sentences? Okay, children. So I want you to read it and try and do this yourself. Think about the sentence and then we go to the next. The speaking exercise we're not going to do as we do not have class at present, but feelings of grief. Although grief, that means sorrow, is unique and personal, a broad range of feelings and behavior are commonly experienced after the death of a loved one. First is sadness. This is the most common feeling, and it is not necessarily manifested by crying. Anger. This is also the most confusing feeling for a survivor. When somebody dies, the person who is left there first becomes very sad and then is angry at himself, at God, and at things in general. So the next is there's frustration at not being able to do anything to stop the death of that person, and in a sense not being able to exist without that loved one. Then guilt and self-reproach. Many people believe that they were not kind enough or caring enough to the person who died, or that person should have seen the doctor sooner, that they should have done something about it and that person would not have died. Then anxiety is an individual may fear that he won't be able to care for himself or herself after that loved one's death. Loneliness. These are reminders throughout the day that a partner is gone. For example, meals are no longer prepared the same way. Phone calls to share special moments don't happen. Fatigue. There's an overall sense of feeling tired, lethargic, and disbelief because that person who has lost another family member or a close loved one is in a sense of shock. And so this occurs when there is a sudden death. That person doesn't come to terms with the fact that the other person has died. So what should we do? We must help others who are experiencing grief. When a friend, loved one, or a co-worker is experiencing grief, how can we help? It helps to understand that grief is expressed through a variety of behaviors. Reach out to others in their grief and understand that some may not want to accept help and will not share grief. Others will want to talk about their thoughts and feelings or their old memories. They will want to reminiscence. So be patient and allow that grieving person to know that you care and that you are there to support them. Then what is good grief? Then Amitai Arzioni. Soon after my wife died, this is just an example. Her car slid off an icy road in 1985. A school psychologist warned me that my children and I were not mourning in the right way. We felt very angry. The proper first stage, he said, is denial. In late August this year, my 38-year-old son Michael died suddenly in his sleep, leaving behind a 2-year-old son and a wife expecting their next child. There is no set form of grief and no right way to express it. There seems to be an expectation that after a great loss, we will progress systematically through the well-known stages of grief. It is wrong. We are told to jump to anger or to wallow too long in this stage before moving towards acceptance. So, but I was and am angry. To make parents bury their children is wrong. To have both my wife and son taken from me forever and a day is cruel beyond words. A relative from Jerusalem who is a psychiatrist brought some solace by citing the maxim that means a thought. We are not to ask why, but what. The what is that which survivors in grief are bound to do for one another. Following that advice, my family, close friends, and I keep busy calling each other, giving long answers to simple questions like, how did your day go today? We try to avoid thinking about either the immediate past or the bereft future. future without those people. We take turns playing with Max, that is Michael's 2-year-old son. Friends spend nights with the young widow and will be among those holding her hand when the new baby is born. So, focusing on what we do for one another is the only consolation that we can find in a time of suffering. So, this is the important part, children. Write a page about 3 paragraphs on any one of the following topics, and this is important. You can think about the ideas in the text that are relevant and add your own ideas and experiences. First is teaching someone to understand a new or difficult idea. So, how will you do it? So, you jot down points and then think about it and then write. Helping each other to get over difficult times. You can understand how you have been through a difficult time, how you coped with that, and then you can help somebody else go through their difficult time. The third one, thinking about oneself as unique or as one among billions of others. So, this is very true. All of us are very unique, even though you may, like somebody may resemble you, but that person is very, very different from you. Even two twins, those who are identical twins, may look alike, but yet their thoughts, their feelings, their likes, their dislikes, all are very different. So, in this lesson, what we have done is narrated the story of the Buddha and the advice he gave to a grief-stricken woman. And what you can do is read and discuss the following extract from Khalil Gibran, the Prophet with his students. Then a woman said, "Speak to us of joy and sorrow." And he answered, "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked, and the self-same well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears. And how else can it be? The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain." That means if you're used to being like you, if you have come to terms with sadness, then you are able to contain more happiness. Is not the cup that holds your wine the very cup that was burned in the potter's oven? So what Khalil Gibran is trying to say, that in order to hold wine that causes joy and excitement, first you must go through the purifying process. You must go through the heat which finally makes that cup the cup that is able to hold joy and excitement. So our life in the same way is like that. And is not the lute that soothes your spirit. That means he's talking about the flute, the bansuri, the very wood that was hollowed out with knives. When you are joyous, look deep into your heart and you shall find it is only that which has given you sorrow that is giving you joy. When you are sorrowful, look again in your heart and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has been your delight. Some of you, so that means there is a very fine line of separation between joy and happiness. Some of you say joy is greater than sorrow, and others say nay, sorrow is the greater. But I say unto you, they are inseparable. That means there's a very fine line dividing both of them. So, together they came, and when one sits alone with you at your board, remember that the other is asleep on your bed. That means if you are happy, then sorrow is just lurking around, and if you are sad, then your companion is also happiness. So help students to read and memorize the following extract from Tagore. Say not in grief that she is no more, but say in thankfulness that she was. You should not be sad that somebody is not there anymore, but you should be thankful that you knew that person. A death is not the extinguishing of a light, but it is the putting out of the lamp, because the dawn has come. Because see, when somebody is there in your life and that person is no longer there, then be happy for the time that you have spent with that person, and don't be sad that the light has to be put out, but be happy that there is a new beginning, that there is a new morning. So thank you children, and have a nice day.